Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode on Author Ignite. We've got some really great content for you. Today, we are talking all about how to ignite your courage. This is part of the Ignite series that we're doing. Welcome, everybody. If you haven't been on one of these before, we talk about one topic, we go really, really in depth. And then in the back, we do have some Q&A with our Author Ignite members that are here watching with me in Zoom. If you're curious about how to get into Zoom with me, then go ahead and just drop a comment below and I'll give you the link to join. It's super, super easy. And you can then be live in Zoom and get coaching and Q&A on the back end of these Author Ignite sessions. But for today, I'm really excited because we're talking about a topic that is really important to all of us. It's been super important to me. We're going to be going deep into how to ignite your courage. I'm actually going to give you 5 ways to become a more courageous writer. And I really think that as we move into the middle of this year, we're kind of already approaching the 3-month mark. It's really important we check in with ourselves and really tap into how can we become more courageous, not just in what we're doing on the page with our writing, but also how we're showing up to agents and publishers and anybody that we're sharing our work with. So why courage? Of course, writing a book takes courage. You know that, and you're here because of you do have some courage, and we want to build the courage muscle. And reaching out to readers takes courage. Reaching out to publishers, putting yourself on social media takes courage. A key question for you is, are we born with courage, or is this something that we must grow and develop over time? I think courage is a muscle. We can exercise it. And like anything in life, if we exercise it, we change our mind, we change our thoughts, we change our habits, we change our actions. Then, of course, we can create anything that we desire simply by doing those things, right? So we're going to talk about how to build a more courageous, more bold writing habit, how to become more bold and courageous in our writing so that we can actually get our books done and out there into the world in a meaningful way and do the work that we're here to do ultimately. All right, so let's go into the first way we need to build courage. This is a common one that comes up. You may have felt it yourself. I certainly have felt it, still feel it at times. And this is overcoming imposter syndrome. The first way to build courage is to overcome imposter syndrome. This typically shows up as a question: who am I to write this? Who am I to write about this topic or to tell this story? We ask this question like somehow we are not enough, like we are not qualified, right? And the question I was asked back is like, if it's not you, who's going to write this story from this perspective? Who's going to give this advice, this knowledge? So if not you, who else is going to do this? And part of overcoming imposter syndrome is to see the synergy between your life experiences, everything that you've lived, the perspective that you've gained, and the book that you're writing. We want to see that connectivity because that is fuel for us starting to build that courage muscle and understand there's only one person who can write this book. There's only one person who's been given this perspective, this knowledge and experience. And the reason the book is on your heart, the reason you feel like you need to get it out there is because you are the perfect person to write it. There is no coincidence, right? More than synergy, what this really comes down to is trusting in something bigger than ourselves, trusting in a higher power, in God, in the universe, the grand design of things, of infinite intelligence, whatever your language is, whatever your beliefs are. We need to move into a place of trust and faith that these experiences have been gifted to us for the purpose of sharing it with others and helping other people, right? And one common denominator that all my authors have is they have a positive message in what they're doing, whether they're writing fiction or nonfiction, whether, they're in memoir or they're in self-development or they're writing a novel. It does not matter across the board. They're writing their particular story and their particular book for the purpose of helping other people. Okay. In short, we can't wait till we feel ready or qualified, right? We just have to jump in. The truth is most of us are never going to feel 100% ready or qualified. You just got to hit the button and dive right in. You have to jump in. The truth is you can't let the imposter syndrome stop you from moving forward. You can't let it interrupt what it is that you're doing. Part of the whole aspect of becoming an author is trusting in your message and in your voice that you need to get out there, right? And by the way, readers and publishers and literary agents, they hear it when you don't. They hear the misalignment if you are showing up without the courage that you need, without the confidence that you need. So we really need to check in with ourselves and going, okay, how can I really overcome this voice in the back of my head that's saying, you're not ready, you're not qualified, or you're somehow missing something to do this? You're not missing anything, right? You have exactly what you need right now to make a start. So the last point I'm going to say about this is really important. And that is this whole idea of like getting started, moving forward with our books. We often think that we need to wait for something to happen or to gain more experience or to be older or to somehow have like another life moment that's going to feed our books. We don't, right? Now is the perfect time. And the reason why is because by taking action, we actually start to build the courage that we need. We start to build our confidence. We build our skills. We become better writers. So you have to move so life can move with you. If we stay in the same place, then nothing is going to change, right? Nothing is going to drive us toward our goals. We have to move. We have to take action so that life can correspond and life can work with us. All the grand design of things can unfold. I firmly believe that that is how it works. So part of overcoming imposter syndrome is about trusting that you've been given your message and your story and your experiences for a purpose. Instead of asking, who am I to write this book? The question needs to become, who am I not to write this book? Who am I to like hold this back from the world? That's where we want to move into. That's the energy I want you to be in when you're writing your books. So that's number one. Let's move into way number two to start to build the courage we need. Way number two is to stop worrying that what you have to say has been said before. A lot of people will come to me and say, oh, this topic's been covered, or this story has been told, or I feel like there's already a book out there on this thing. The way we move through this is so simple. And this came to me just only this past weekend. So I'm sharing this kind of hot off the press, fresh off the download from the higher ups, right? It doesn't make sense that only one person is given the important message. One message per person for all 8 billion people. It's not how it works, right? We need many people with the same message to get it out there. So yes, lots of us have the same or similar messages to share. And I think that's for a good reason. I think it's because we have different ways of communicating what we want to say. We have different stories and different lenses through which we're talking about this idea or this concept. So it's not one person, one message. It's many people with the same message because that's what we need. That's the scale that this world actually needs to change. And it's important to reach as many people as we can. I think that's the grand design working. So yes, your message or your idea might be similar to a whole bunch of other books and a whole bunch of other authors, but none of them are going to come through with the uniqueness that yours is. Yours is going to be special. Yours is going to be different. And the reason why is because you are you with your voice, your experience, and your perspective that can only come from you, right? And everyone else has their own. And this is the scale that we need things to be done. So I think we have to stop worrying that it's been said before and instead start thinking about what's my contribution to share it differently? What is it that I have in my arsenal that's going to make this really pop for my readers, right? How am I going to really reach them? How am I going to connect with them emotionally on the page? How am I going to move and inspire them? What are they going to learn through reading my book? Where do I want them to end up at the end? How do I want them to share this with their friends, their families, their coworkers, right? These are the questions we want to ask. And when we start to ask these better questions, we're starting to see all the ways in which we're the perfect person to write our books. So we have to stop worrying it's been said before and instead start asking these better questions so that we can move beyond this fear that we're just repeating what's already out there. That's number two. Way number three to develop courage with our writing, with our authorship, is moving beyond overwhelm. Overwhelm is so common. We've all been there. It feels like the story, the book is so big. How are we going to possibly write it, do it justice? And then beyond that, there's publishing, there's marketing. It's like your head starts spinning with all the things. And before you know it, you're not writing. You're not taking any steps because you feel this sense of like, oh my gosh, it's too much. Overwhelm is funny because it's usually a result of thinking that there's too much to do and we have more to do than we actually do, and that we're the only ones that can do it. So overwhelm is usually a common experience around that, where our thinking is that there's too much and it's just me. How can I possibly do all of this and do it well and do it right now? Right? It's like all the things all at once. And so, this is really making the task more difficult than it needs to be. That's what I think of overwhelm. When I'm feeling overwhelmed, I always think this follow-up thought really quickly to kind of catch myself. And the thought is, I'm making more of this than it actually is. I'm building up a whole big thing in my mind about how complex and difficult and scary this thing is. I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. I really try to catch myself fast because our imagination can take over and start to paint a picture that's a lot different than what reality actually has in front of us. So part of overwhelm, making the task more difficult than it actually is, imagining this big, huge thing. This is really common with writing a book, right? We think, oh my gosh, these books I read are so amazing. They're beautiful, they're edited, they're published. How am I going to do all of that? And then the overwhelm kicks in. So we need to kind of step aside and understand more about overwhelm. Overwhelm is often associated with something called process pain, which is fear that the process is going to be too difficult, fear that it's going to be too hard. And therefore, what do? When we fear something, we hold back. Like we stop, we put the brakes on. So when we have process pain, we avoid doing the things that we need to do to move forward and make it easier. This is what's really interesting about it. This causes the overwhelm to deepen and, of course, to get worse. This is how powerful overwhelm can be, right? Because it's all up here. It's all in our experience, in our minds, which, of course, a lot of these things are. The fear and worry keeps us stuck. But like anything in life, the more that you do it and you take simple, concrete steps toward where you want to go, the easier it becomes. And that's what I want for all of you, is I want for you to start to take those simple, concrete steps today, because when you do something imperfectly today, that's worth much more than something perfect in the future that never happens. The way that we're going to do that is understand exactly what it is, understand that it's fear of the process, fear of like making it more than it actually is in our minds, our imagination's taking over. And we need to start imagining the process to be easier. So we need to reshape everything and start saying, no, this is simple. I can figure it out. Other people have figured it out clearly, right? Because there are many books being published every single day, many new authors coming on stream. If they can do it, of course, I can do it too. And so simplifying our thinking so that we can simplify our habits, so we can simplify our actions, right? And it's all, of course, connected. We're going to move into number 4 here. We have 5 to cover. We're going to move into number 4. Overwhelm, as you're probably feeling into, is really, really similar to something we know as perfectionism. Perfectionism is the fear that it's not going to be perfect or turn out exactly as you imagine it to be, right? It's really related to control. When we want something to be perfect, we want to control the outcome. We want it to be exactly fitting into our projected experience, exactly what we want. When we're in that situation, right, we are feeling like, we have to be at the center of everything. Perfectionism is largely about us, our ego, worrying about what other people might think of us, worrying about how we're going to be perceived. So we really want to get a handle on this and move from the I to the we. We have to think about the fact that the work we're doing in our writing with our books is bigger than us. So here's the news flash for all of us here, all of our Author Ignite. Our books are not about us. As much as we want to think our books are about us and our name is on the cover, and I just got these 2 hardbacks yesterday, which I'll show you, but these are these authors of ours, right? As much as we want to think our books are about us with the fancy covers and our names on them, they're not. Our books are not about us. They're about our readers. Okay. So the way we get past perfectionism is by putting our reader first. When we put our reader first, everything starts to shift because now we're thinking about what's best for them. How do I serve them with the structure? How do I serve them with the content? How do I show up in a way on the page that's going to actually move them in the way that I want to move them, whether that's informing them or teaching them or inspiring them or entertaining them, right? If we're in the realm of fiction. So we have to think about our reader first. And most people, when they first begin writing, when they first start the process of becoming an author, are all up here in their head about themselves. Am I saying this the right way? Where do I start? How do I tell this part of my story? Should I include that, right? It's all focused on the I, but we've got to move from the I to the we so that we can have a bigger impact and actually start talking to the person that we most want to reach with our books, which is our reader. It's all about them. Ultimately, think from a strategic standpoint, okay? Your reader is the one that's going to make or break your book. They're the one that's going to decide to buy it. They're the one that's going to give you that 4 or 5-star rating. They're the one that's going to write the review, share it with their friends, text their mastermind group and say, you have to read this book, or blog about the novel that they've just read and said, this was the most amazing story. It can't be about us. It can only ever be about our readers. But I think a lot of the time, authorship can be very ego-driven. We can really get in our heads about it, and we can only, think about what we are doing. And the way through that, the way through perfectionism that I've found to be so valuable is to refocus on what does my reader need from me? What do they need in this chapter, this paragraph, this section of the book? What do they need in the title? Not what I want the title to be, right? Because usually what my idea of the title isn't what they need it to be. What do they need the title to be to buy the book, to pick it up, be interested, and gain the value that they're looking for? So all these pieces come together. When we are shifting our perspective on what the reader needs, putting them first, that's when we start to see the career of the author change. That's when we start to see them take off and really build the following, the community. It all starts to work together because, of course, we're in service to our reader, and service is the highest thing that we can aspire to do. So this is number 4. Number 4 on perfectionism. And now we're going to talk about the last piece. Okay. The last piece, number 5, the way that we're going to build courage is to stop worrying about what comes next. A lot of people, a really common reason that people stop writing once they start is because they can't see a clear path to getting what they want. For example, they begin writing, they have the burst of inspiration, they sit down, and maybe some of you have experienced this yourself. I know I certainly have back in the day. I would sit down writing and I would feel like, oh my gosh, there's like so much between here and having my finished book in my hand, like done. There's so many steps and there's so many people that I'm sure have to be involved to help me, but I don't really know where they come into to the process. I don't really see the how step by step. The path is not clear. I kind of know there's editing and some other stuff. And of course, publishing and printing, I can logically think about it, but that also doesn't help me feel comfortable in the path I'm walking. All of you are smart people. And just because we can see a book and kind of think, okay, yes, I can get a handle on the steps, it doesn't give us confidence to walk the path. And that's what's really interesting, right? So if we can't see the clear path, we're kind of not taking the first step because we just don't really have confidence in the path that we're walking, right? We think there's like 100 steps and we need each one like in order. So a lot of that thinking is really, really detrimental to writing the book because when you can't see what's in front of you, you stop walking. This question about what comes next is usually verbalized as something like, so I write the book and then what? That's usually how it shows up when I talk to aspiring authors. It's I write the book and then what? And the feeling that comes through is discouragement. It's so discouraging for all of us to think about writing a book and it not going anywhere. That's like, of course, an author's worst nightmare, aspiring author's worst nightmare. You write this book and it doesn't go anywhere. It stays on your hard drive, right? Stays in manuscript form because all of us aspire to that end goal, having the finished product. Because we can't see the end goal, we feel discouraged. We don't take the first step. Or if we've started, we quit, we give up, we stop. Now, part of this is what creates the cycle of starting and stopping, because when you stop writing and then you get another burst of inspiration, right? If it comes many months later or something like that, you jump in and you write again. But you're writing from a place of motivation. You're writing from a place of quick bursts of creativity and not from sustained momentum on the project. You're also not writing from a place of clarity because you still can't see the path. So we have to build that in. We have to build that in. How do we build this in? Well, there's a kind of a common theme on today's training, because everything is coming back to mindset. It's coming back to how we understand what we're doing, how we break it down, how our minds interpret it, and the experience we intentionally create for ourselves on the path to authorship. This is no different. So we're imagining that the end goal, the destination, is further away than we think it is. That's what's happening here. We are imagining that it's really far off, difficult to get there. We can't see it clearly. And this, of course, creates the experience I just shared. So what are we supposed to do, right? What do? We're kind of stuck in this trap. And the way out of it, the way that we shift out of it and move through that, is again intentionally reimagining something completely different. What we need to do is tell ourselves and imagine that the destination is closer than we think it is. And this is something that I've heard spoken about a lot with successful people. One of the thought patterns that successful people have is that they imagine that their end goal, the thing that they most desire and are trying to achieve, is a heck of a lot closer than they think. They condition themselves to believe that where they're going, it's going to be faster, easier, and more straightforward to get there. This is part of their success habits. This is part of the way that they think, whether it's business or sports, whatever we're talking about here, right? Entrepreneurship. They tend to think that where they're going is closer and they're going to get there faster than they even can imagine. So what this does is opens up a ton of possibility for us to recondition our minds or the end goal. Just because I can't see the path clearly in all 100 steps, I know that it's closer than I'm even imagining. So for myself, I'll give you an example of how this is showing up for me and how I'm using this mental trick to condition myself around my writing, around my books. Now, I'm playing the long game because right now I'm pitching fiction. It's just went out to publishers. So I'm playing the long game there. Traditional publishing is a longer term thing. It's a long game. And so how this is showing up for me is I keep telling myself it's going to happen fast. It's going to move fast. In fact, I'll even share with you, I had a dream last night that my agent called me and she said, Ashley, they want to do a multiple book deal and it's going to be really, really quick. And so this message is even coming through in my subconscious. Even when I'm asleep, it's still coming through. But that's because I intentionally have been telling myself for a very long time that this is going to happen quickly. It's going to move quickly. And I know and I trust that it will. So this is a mindset piece, but there's also some strategy here, because if we can recondition our thinking, life has a way of corresponding and making those experiences real for us. So for example, I landed my agent really ridiculously fast. And I'm sure that it's all because of this pattern of thinking, seeing the destination of where I want to go, and trusting and conditioning my thoughts that this is going to happen faster than I even can imagine. So this is part of pulling that end goal in closer to us. Notice the contrast of when we have the end goal, like a published book, and we push it way off. Oh, this is going to take me years. This is going to be forever, right? Or this is going to be 5-10 years. When we do that, that's the reality we start to create, versus this is going to happen fast for me. And it's going to be closer than what I can even envision. And trusting in that is completely different energy and has so much power to it when you recondition your mind to think in that way. So we want to see the end result. We want to visualize what we want to create, where we're going, trust that we're going to get there, even if we can't see every single step. This is how it all comes together. Focusing on that end goal, what we desire to create, and we consciously move toward it step by step. Now, like I said earlier, you don't have to see all 100 steps of the writing, revision, the editing, the publishing process. You don't have to see that. You don't have to have it all laid out. What is the thing that you actually have to move forward? It's really, really simple, right? You just need to see the next step in front of you. the next piece. That's all you need. Beyond that is simply, here's the goal. This is where I'm headed. I trust, I bring it closer to me. I understand it's going to happen fast and it's right there in front of me. So we need to be thinking in that way, and also just know that it's just one step we need. The next right step, the next right action. That's what we're looking for all the time. We don't need to plan out the next 100, because that leads us back, of course, to overwhelm and perfectionism and all these other things that hold us back. So what I'm wanting to do, the reason I structured the conversation with the 5 ways, is so that we can see how they're all interconnected, how overwhelm connects to perfectionism, connects to imposter syndrome, right? Connects to worrying that what we've said has been said before. All of these experiences are interwoven and connected. So if we can pick one and start to work through it, like overwhelm or perfectionism, we can start to break down the others. And that's what our job is, right? As authors, our job is not to rest back on our laurels and kind of go, I've got it. Like, I write every day, I'm good. No, it's to stay on top of, where are we going? What is our core goal? And to consciously align our thoughts, our habits, and our actions toward that thing. So those are the 5 ways to build courage. And like I've said, every single step you take, another will unfold after that. When you do start to get in momentum with your book, you will see things take shape and it will start to reinforce itself, right? Every step will lead to another, and more things will come to you as you get in action, as you get in momentum. And it will all unfold from there. It will all start to unfold organically. So now I want to reflect for a second. We've done some good conversation on these 5 things. We've talked about, imposter syndrome was number 1, how to overcome that. We've talked about how to, stop worrying that what you have to say has been said before, loosely connected. We've talked about overwhelm, moving beyond that, perfectionism, how to get over perfectionism, and how to stop worrying about what comes next. So all these pieces interrelate, but now what I'd like you to do is reflect on where you can build more courage in your life. And of course, where can you build more courage with your writing? Where are you holding yourself back? What are some of the key ways overwhelm or perfectionism are showing up for you? And notice that those patterns are a little bit sneaky. Those patterns do have a tendency to repeat themselves, right? And that's just the way that we are as humans. So part of, what the work is that I do, of course, is to raise awareness around these things so we can move through them together. So now that you've reflect for a second on where you can build more courage. The second step I want you to take is to think about one action you can do today to build more courage. Build more courage in connection with your authorship and the goals that you have. In other words, what action can you take to move toward your goals? What is that going to look like for you? It's Thursday, March 2nd. We're starting a new month. Maybe a good thing to do is to look at what's before you this month and how you can actually put a goal in place every week, work toward it, right? What does that look like? Think critically on where might you need to address some imposter syndrome? Where is the perfectionism showing up? Where are you feeling overwhelmed? Where is your mind taking over and pulling you into overwhelm? Now, you can do a powerful exercise to uncover all of this. And that exercise, of course, is free writing. Whether you want to, grab your pen and do it by hand, of course, that's powerful. You can equally sit and type. Start at 15 minutes, work your way up to 30, and then stretch into 3/4 of an hour, 60 minutes, right? Free writing is the most powerful tool you can ever do because you're tapping into the truth of what you want to say and what needs to come through, what needs to be said. So I would encourage everybody who's watching to do a free write exercise and unpack where you can build more courage, unpack overwhelm, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, because these are the common things that sneak in and steal your momentum, steal your time, steal your boldness, and steal your confidence. That's the other piece of this. Last week, we talked about confidence, or the week before, we talked about confidence. But all of these layers feed into your confidence and how confidently you can show up. Okay, so those are the things I would recommend from here, some action steps. Dial in your free writing. Get that down. Do that this week. Do it this weekend. It's a great time to reflect and see what comes up for you. This is a great year to do it. 2023, there's a momentum taking place. A lot of people are feeling more energized. We're coming out of a challenging couple of years, and a lot of people are starting to reflect on, where is it I actually want to go? What am I building? What am I creating for myself? What are my next 2-3 years going to be? Right? We're heading into a very interesting time. There's so many changes taking shape, but what we can see across the board is that people out there need what you have to say. People out there absolutely need your books. They need your stories. And it's a really, really good time to get your message and your stories out there. More ways to be published, more people that can support you, plenty of opportunity to become the author that you aspire to be and actually do your work beyond the book, whether that's from stage or getting on podcasts or television. We have authors doing all of those things, and it's all available to you as well. You need to dial this in. 2023 is the year when you make substantial strides in whatever it is you're doing, whether that's finishing your book, finally getting the outline done. Maybe that's actually writing or revising a piece that you've been working on for a long time. Maybe it's landing that literary agent. Maybe it's getting the publisher to say yes. Whatever it is before you, this is a good time to dial it in, what you want and what you need to clear out of the way so that you can get there. If you found this training helpful and you would like to, of course, be here live in Zoom with me so you can have questions answered and you can get some coaching in the Author Ignite membership, you're welcome to join. We do have a special going on right now. There will be a link in this post to join Author Ignite for $23 per month. You can get access to these trainings and support every week from me all year long. It's a great community. We've got it just kind of bubbling now with some authors joining, and I'm super excited because it allows me to do what I love to do most, which is support people that have the passion to write and get their books out into the world. As it all comes down to, it really is all mindset. It's how we're thinking about the things that we're doing. And of course, once we do have our right mindset aligned, it's getting the right strategies and tactics in place so that we can be moving forward in the most productive way, being efficient with our time, because time is everything, right? Like time is what we have. That's it for now, everybody. Have a great rest of your Thursday. I will see you next week and keep on writing. See you later.